Wife Penelope and I have been married for 7 years now, though back then, she was just a young woman figuring out life, and I was just a man figuring out how to not look like a complete mess in public. She dropped out of college, ended up working at this little diner downtown. The same diner where, by pure coincidence, I somehow always ended up. My office was right across the street, which is to say, my daily routine was depressingly predictable. Coffee, sad sandwich, stare out the window like a romance novel hero with terrible timing. Penelope was always there, refilling cups, taking orders, chatting with the regulars like she was the queen of caffeine. At first, our conversations were brief, the usual small talk. Coffee? Cream or sugar? Riveting stuff. But slowly, day by day, I found myself actually looking forward to those tiny exchanges. Then one evening, I had a date lined up with a woman I'd been chatting with online. Weeks of texts, emojis, and a suspicious number of cat gifs had led me to believe we were soulmates. I arrived early, jittery, ordered a coffee, and planted myself at a corner booth, staring at the door like a man awaiting divine intervention. Hours passed. She didn't show. Ghosted. Poof. Vanished into the night, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a coffee that had gone cold. I was about ready to start a eulogy for my dignity when Penelope walked over, one eyebrow raised, a smile that could melt glaciers, and said, "Looks like you could use a slice of pie on the house." I stared. Pie? Can pie really fix a broken heart? Maybe not, she said, but it can keep you from doing anything too stupid while your heart catches up. And just like that, we talked. Really talked. About life, bad dates, and the delightful absurdity of human expectation. I told her about my online disaster, how apparently my charm expires around 6:47 p.m. She laughed so hard she almost dropped a plate. I laughed too, because it was cheaper than therapy. By the time I left the diner that night, my stomach was full, my ego slightly bruised, but my brain was stuck on one thing, Penelope. And from that moment on, everything between us started to change. As the weeks turned into months, Penelope and I naturally began spending more time together. Somehow, without me noticing, my feelings for her started to deepen. Not that I had a choice. She had this way of looking at life that made my cynicism feel like a bad habit I should quit. And she could make me laugh, sometimes at things I didn't even think were funny, like that time I tripped over a chair and she called it my interpretive dance debut. But it wasn't just the humor or the occasional kindness. It was the way she refused to let life's crap define her. She had dreams, ambitions, real ones, not the kind I pretend to have when I tell strangers I run a startup. She just needed someone to believe in her. I believed, and luckily, she seemed to think I was worth believing in too. What started as friendship slowly morphed into something more, until one night she said, "So, are we doing this officially, or are we just casual coffee buddies forever?" I grinned. Let's make it official. I've always wanted a title that sounds like it comes with benefits and legal responsibilities. And just like that, we were together. It should have been bliss. It should have been sunshine and confetti and those weird Instagram couple photos people post to make the rest of us miserable. But of course, my family never approved of Penelope. From day one, they treated her like she had arrived on a spaceship from a land with no degrees, no status, and apparently, no taste in men. They were convinced she only wanted me for my money, which, let's be honest, was modest at best, unless you consider modest a term that rhymes with delusions of grandeur. I tried. I really did. "She's amazing," I said. "She's kind, smart, funny." "Sure, son," my father replied. "But can she balance a checkbook? Does she even know what a 401k is?" My mother had a very different take. "She is a 304. Sooner or later, she will show her colors. Don't have kids with her." Spoiler alert, there were no children yet. But thanks, Mom. Very reassuring. Still, I didn't care. I loved Penelope. And when the time was right, I married her. Over the years, I did everything I could to support her, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I helped her go back to school and earn her degree, something she once thought was out of reach. I worked hard to buy us a home she had always dreamed of, a place she could truly call her own. I helped her parents countless times, whether it was covering rent when money was tight or making sure they didn't starve on spaghetti and ketchup. Whenever Penelope needed something, no matter how big or small, I was always there to make sure she had it. And I never once complained, not because I wanted recognition or gratitude, but because I loved her. I believed in us. I always thought she felt the same way. If there were a medal for most supportive husband who also handles life's chaos like a pro, I'd probably have a display case by now. No, I'm writing this because, for the longest time, I thought my love was enough. I thought our marriage was built on something real. But then came 6 months ago, and suddenly I was questioning everything. It all started about a year and a half ago when Penelope landed this incredible job at a well-established company. Big step forward for her. Huge. And yes, I was genuinely proud, though I did sneak in a little help by reaching out to a friend who worked there. A tiny, insignificant nudge. She was fully qualified, obviously. She earned the job, no doubt. At the time, I thought this new opportunity would bring us closer. Maybe she'd be excited to tell me about her day, share stories about the office drama, maybe even invite me to a party or two where I could mingle awkwardly and pretend I understood finance jargon. Then things started to feel off. The first thing was how she handled work events. Penelope's company is basically a social butterfly convention. Networking events, office parties, celebrations, free booze, basically every HR memo's wet dream. Partners are encouraged. Heck, partners are practically invited with a marching band and confetti cannon. But Penelope never once invited me. Not a single time. At first, I shrugged. Maybe she just wanted to keep work and personal life separate. Fair. I respected that. Really, I did. But deep down, a little voice, probably the same one that reminded me to check if the oven was off 5 times before leaving the house, kept nagging. Something wasn't right. I mean, why not me? Was she embarrassed by me? Was she silently judging my t-shirt collection? Was she just avoiding my legendary dance moves at office parties? And then there were her male colleagues. Now, I'm not the jealous type. At least, that's what I tell myself in the mirror, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she was extremely close to certain men at her office. It wasn't just my imagination either. Twice now, the wives of these guys, yes, actual grown women, either reached out to me or confronted Penelope directly, demanding she back off from their husbands. Not exactly the usual chit-chat over coffee, unless your office has a side hobby of marital chaos. I brought it up to Penelope one evening, trying to sound calm and reasonable, like a guy who definitely doesn't have a stress-induced gray hair outbreak forming at the temples. Hey, I said, so, their wives, the ones who called me twice, think you're maybe getting too close to their husbands. She rolled her eyes, flashing that grin that always made it hard to stay mad. Cooper, please. It's purely professional. Their wives are insecure, controlling, typical drama queens. Trust me. I raised an eyebrow. Professional, huh? And by professional, you mean lunch meetings that somehow never involve me, right? She laughed. You're imagining things. Look, you can go through my messages if it'll make you feel better. So I did. And to her credit, nothing jumped out. No flirty texts, no secret meetups, no mysterious coffee at midnight invitations. Nada. Just work talk, spreadsheets, and the occasional emoji that could mean literally anything. I believed her. But then came the cosmetic procedures. Now, let me get this straight. I have zero problem with her doing what she wants with her body. Seriously. If it makes her happy, go for it. I respect that. But, within a single year, she went full-on Hollywood. Implants, lip fillers, Botox, cheek injections, liposuction, you name it, she tried it. I half expected her next step to be a holographic glow-up. I said, Penelope, seriously, this is like turning into a different person every week. Are we collecting experiences, or are we starring in a reality makeover show? She crossed her arms, giving me that Cooper, you are officially overthinking look. Cooper, it's my money, my body, and my choice. These procedures make me feel more confident. And if I truly loved her, I wouldn't question her choices. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But still, there's this nagging feeling that this isn't just about confidence. It feels like she's slowly morphing into someone I don't fully recognize anymore. Like a long-running TV series where the main character suddenly gets recast mid-season. Despite having a well-paying job, Penelope has no savings. Nada. Not a single shiny little emergency fund squirreled away. She doesn't invest, doesn't contribute to any future plans, and never, ever offers to chip in for things like groceries or our dates. I handle every single expense. Our home, our bills, our outings. It's like I'm the CFO, the treasurer, and the unpaid intern all rolled into one. Meanwhile, she spends her entire paycheck on shopping, designer items, and cosmetic procedures. She's making more money than ever before, and yet has nothing to show for it. No investments, no rainy day stash, no plans for our future. I said one evening. So, let me get this straight. You just spend everything? She shrugged. Cooper, life is short. Why not enjoy it? Enjoy it, with my income. I muttered under my breath, like a man narrating his own sitcom tragedy. And then, 6 months ago, she got promoted. Huge deal. Big deal. She was ecstatic, practically bouncing around the house like she'd won the lottery, though somehow the lottery prize included only work clothes and a slightly higher paycheck. I was proud, genuinely happy. After all, I'd been by her side the whole way, supporting, believing, nudging, and occasionally bribing friends to help with opportunities. She wanted to celebrate, naturally, a big party at our house, with her close family, friends, and some coworkers. A night of joy, a night to honor everything she'd worked for. A few days before the party, she casually mentioned, multiple times, like a broken record, that I was more than welcome to skip it if I didn't like going. I honestly don't mind either way, she said, twirling her wine glass like a tiny, smug ballerina. If you want to stay home and binge watch that show with the zombie dog, that's fine. Really, the more she brought it up, the more uneasy I felt. It wasn't like she outright told me not to come. No, that would have been too easy. But the way she kept suggesting my presence wasn't necessary, it gnawed at me like a coffee-stained existential mouse. I couldn't understand it. This is my wife, the woman I loved, the person I had always supported. Why would she be indifferent about me attending such an important moment in her life? Shouldn't she want me there, standing beside her, maybe holding a drink like I knew what I was doing? I decided to reassure her. Penelope, I said, trying to sound casual while secretly bracing myself for social rejection. I want to be there. Proud of you, celebrating with you. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She smiled, nodded, and, shockingly, didn't argue further. So, the party arrived. And very quickly, I realized I wasn't a guest of honor. I was a spectator, like one of those sad mannequins in a department store window. Penelope was fully immersed in her friends and coworkers, laughing, chatting, and probably plotting the next office gala without me. I didn't mind. Well, not entirely, but what got under my skin was how little effort she made to include me. No introductions. No gentle nudges into conversations. I might as well have been wearing an invisible cloak labeled, "Husband, do not disturb." Eventually, a few curious colleagues approached me. "So, you're Penelope's husband?" one said, eyebrows raised. "Yes," I replied, trying to muster charm I didn't know I possessed. "The very same. Living legend, apparently unknown to most of your office." They looked mildly shocked, like I had just confessed to being a spy or an escaped circus performer. And then, as the night meandered on, one of her coworkers clapped and said, "Penelope, give us a speech." The room quieted, all eyes on her. Slightly tipsy, she grabbed the mic, poised and coherent enough to speak. She stood there smiling, radiating confidence like a Broadway star in a budget musical, and announced how happy she was to have finally achieved this milestone all on her own. She talked about the months of hard work, dedication, and perseverance that had finally paid off. She even threw in a few anecdotes about her difficult childhood and the hurdles she had overcome. I nodded along, smiling politely like a contestant in a very awkward game show. Yes, self-made woman, climbing the ladder. Amazing, got it, I muttered under my breath. She painted this grand picture of herself as someone who had done it all alone. Months of effort, trials, triumphs, tears, and she made it sound like she'd built an empire with nothing but sheer willpower and a stapler. And yet, not once, not a single mention of me. My support, my encouragement, all the sacrifices I'd made to help her reach this moment. Poof. Gone. Invisible. I waited, patiently, hoping for just a glance, a nod, or maybe even a "Hey Cooper, thanks for not strangling me in the process." Nothing. Nada. Then she leaned into her playful smirk and said, jokingly, that with her promotion, she would now be earning more than me. "I'm the one bringing in the big bucks now," she laughed, raising her glass like she had just delivered a punchline worthy of a late-night monologue. I blinked, slowly, trying to process. Even with her new salary, she was nowhere near what I made. That wasn't arrogance, it was math. Basic, indisputable math. Yet here she was, spinning a version of reality like she had just discovered time travel or invented free money. I took a slow sip of my drink, pretending to be impressed while my brain did gymnastics, and I watched her carefully, making mental notes for the memoir I was definitely going to write one day about this strange, alternate universe. And as she continued, and then, in front of everyone, she took it a step further. "Now that I'm supposedly the more successful one," she laughed and said, "I guess I should start lawyering up just in case this marriage ever blows up in the future." A few guests forced chuckles, like they were auditioning for a stand-up comedy show, while others exchanged those classic, "What did I just walk into?" looks. My face turned 50 shades of crimson. My own wife had just joked about divorce in front of our family, friends, and her coworkers, like we were a ticking time bomb she found hilarious. And she was laughing. I stared at her, trying to decode the message. Was it really a joke, or was she casually revealing something she genuinely felt, like a plot twist in a bad sitcom? I walked over, placing a hand gently on her arm, leaning in so only she could hear. "Hey," I said softly, "why don't you put down the mic? Let me get you a glass of water so you can sober up a bit." Not a dramatic save, Just a little husbandly intervention before she potentially delivered a live TED Talk on our impending doom. Instead of appreciating it, Penelope scoffed, loudly enough for everyone to hear, and snapped, "Oh, just shut your mouth." The room froze. Even the cheese platter seemed tense. I stood there, blinking at her, completely caught off guard. Penelope had never spoken to me like that before. Not in public. Not in front of an entire room full of people. I could feel every pair of eyes drilling into us like we were the main attraction at a very awkward circus. My face was on fire, and my brain briefly considered digging a hole in the floor. This wasn't just a drunken slip-up. This was disrespect, plain and simple. I swallowed the rising anger, trying not to escalate the situation in front of everyone. Instead, I placed my glass down on the table with the precision of a bomb technician and walked out to get some air. I needed space. I needed to breathe. I needed a moment to figure out how to respond without saying something I couldn't take back. After the party was over, I came home expecting at least a little conversation. Hey, let's talk about what happened kind of moment. But nope. Penelope went straight into the guest room and locked the door. No apology, no explanation, just the deafening sound of silence. I considered knocking, but then thought better of it. Wouldn't want to start a game of guess who's going to snap first. The next morning, I confronted her. "Penelope," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "The way you spoke to me last night was unacceptable. I was humiliated in front of everyone. What made you think it was okay to joke about divorce like that?" She shrugged, as if I had asked her to explain quantum physics instead of human decency. "I didn't really mean it. You're making a big deal out of nothing," she said, like I was the one who had just misplaced reality. "Nothing," I repeated, blinking, my internal sarcasm alarm blaring. "Nothing? You literally joked about hiring lawyers in front of my boss, my family, and apparently the entire local neighborhood." She waved a hand dismissively. "I was just drunk. Didn't mean anything by it. You're overreacting." Overreacting. Right. As opposed to calmly standing there while your spouse casually plants a divorce seed in public. Totally normal. I pressed further. "And the lawyering up comment? You really thought that was just harmless?" At first, she avoided my gaze like a cat confronted with a cucumber. Then, after a pause, she admitted it. "Okay, yes," she said, lips tight. "I do have some concerns about our marriage. I just wanted to protect myself if things ever went south." The words hit me like a sack of bricks. Air knocked out of my lungs. I stared at her, heart pounding, the sarcasm inside me doing cartwheels but not daring to escape. "Listen," I said, my voice low and cold, each word deliberate, sharp as a knife. "I'll make this crystal clear. If you ever even think about divorce, or trying to protect your future behind my back, you speak to me first. Got it? The next time you make a joke about it in public, I won't just call you out. I'll make sure everyone sees exactly what you're doing, and trust me, it won't be pretty. Do I make myself clear?" She didn't answer. She just stared back, lips slightly parted like someone had asked her the meaning of life in Morse code. And in that moment, I realized something. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. 6 months had passed since that night, but I couldn't forget it. Not a chance. The words she said, the way she humiliated me in front of everyone, and how she brushed off my feelings afterward. It all lurked in the back of my mind like an annoying pop-up ad I couldn't close. I tried to push it away, tried to move forward, but no matter how much time passed, I still didn't understand why she had said those things. Our marriage wasn't the same. I no longer trusted Penelope the way I used to. Sure, I still loved her, but a part of me had gone into permanent lockdown, walls up like a medieval fortress, complete with sarcastic moats and imaginary guards with crossbows. She had apologized a few times, of course, but every time, it felt like a checkbox in her mental to-do list. Apologize, done. Next, not a heartfelt acknowledgement of the humiliation I'd endured. Then, a few days ago, I came home and found Penelope sitting on the couch, face buried in her hands, quietly crying. I hadn't seen her like that in ages. Despite everything, my heart twisted seeing her in pain. I walked over and sat beside her, trying for a gentle tone. "Penelope, what's wrong?" She sniffled, finally looking at me with puffy eyes. I got demoted," she admitted, voice shaky. "Demoted?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "You mean the promotion you threw the party for? The one with the speeches and the glass raising and the public lawyering up jokes?" She nodded, tears threatening to fall again. "Yes, my boss. They said I have a bad attitude. That I'm incompetent for the role." I blinked, trying to process it. "Incompetent?" I said, letting out a sarcastic laugh. "Really? You? The woman who stayed late every day, worked hard, and somehow survived the free-for-all buffet at the office party? That's a new definition of incompetent." Her lip trembled. I don't understand it either." I shook my head, sipping my drink like it was a mystery novel I couldn't put down. For all her issues, and yes, there were plenty, I had always believed Penelope worked hard. She went in on time, stayed late, handled her responsibilities. And now her own boss was telling her she was unfit? It didn't add up. Between sobs, Penelope looked at me, eyes red, mascara streaked like a sad raccoon, and said she needed my help. Apparently, the next step in her master plan of life was to hire a lawyer and sue her company. I took a deep breath, trying to sound calm and rational, like a man negotiating with a particularly dramatic hurricane. Penelope, I said slowly, before we make any rash decisions, let me talk to my friend who works at your company. Maybe he can give me some insight into what really happened. If you were wrongfully demoted, of course I'll support you. But if there's more to the story, we need to know before we throw thousands of dollars at lawyers. She blinked at me like I'd suggested we hire a lawyer for our neighbor's cat. No, she said sharply. I just need you to hire a lawyer. No questions, no waiting, no talking. Just do it. I held up my hands like a hostage negotiator. Penelope, this isn't about money. We need to calm down and think rationally about the next steps. Maybe figure out what actually happened before we go nuclear. She leaned in, eyes blazing, and said, you know what I think? I think you're the reason this happened. You've always been jealous of me. Maybe you put an evil eye on me. And now look, my success is gone. I felt like I'd been sucker punched by logic itself. Jealous of her? After everything I'd done for her? After supporting her when no one else did? After helping her get her degree? After basically bribing the universe to get her a good job? Now I was apparently a sinister, jealous mastermind. I opened my mouth to respond, but realized nothing I said would penetrate this particular layer of crazy. I decided a walk was the only reasonable option, like stepping into the fresh air of sanity. When I returned, she kicked me out of our bedroom and made it clear, with all the subtlety of a tornado, that if I didn't give in, she would divorce me. All she wanted, me to hire a lawyer. I needed to find out the real reason why her company demoted her. Companies don't just yank promotions for fun, unless the CEO is auditioning for America's Next Drama Club. Whether Penelope admitted it or not, there had to be more to the story, and I needed the facts before making any big decisions. No matter what I discovered, one thing was painfully clear. I couldn't keep ignoring the red flags. I needed the truth. A week later, I finally met up with my friend who worked at Penelope's company. I braced myself, expecting something mundane, maybe a complaint about her work performance, or a clash with a coworker. I mean, life had given me plenty of warning signs, but surely not this. What he told me shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Cooper, he said, looking like he was about to hand me a live grenade. Penelope's been involved with multiple men at her office. I nearly dropped my coffee. Multiple men? I choked on the last sip, coughing like an extra in a slapstick sitcom. Wait, what? I managed to squeak out. Yes, he continued, shaking his head. Those two women who reached out to you months ago weren't just being jealous and controlling, like she said. They knew what their husbands were up to. I felt my stomach do a somersault. The fool I had been, defending Penelope, insisting she was innocent, buying into every carefully spun story she'd told me. And she'd been betraying me all along. Then he added the kicker. Last month, she went on that work trip you knew about, he said. She told you it was for meetings and networking, right? I swallowed hard. Yes, she did, I said, voice tight. Well, he said, voice grim. This is where she got involved with one of the higher-ups. And, fun fact, he's married too. I blinked. Processing that was like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark. And his wife? I asked, dreading the answer. She accidentally found out through his messages, he said quietly. She was devastated. Instead of just confronting him, she decided to divorce him immediately. And, naturally, she didn't stop there. She marched down to my wife's office to have a face-to-face chat, probably expecting some heartfelt remorse or at least a coherent explanation. Instead, Penelope went full nuclear. Grow up and get over it, she said, like breaking a marriage and ruining someone's life was just Tuesday brunch. It's just sex. Just sex. Right. Because apparently obliterating someone's entire emotional foundation is totally casual these days. And as if that weren't enough, my wife turned into the office herald of shame, bragging about it to everyone who would listen. She apparently recounted, in vivid detail, how good she was in bed and how she had successfully made a couple break up. I imagine there was applause somewhere off camera. Predictably, the fallout was instant. People saw her for who she really was. No charm, no professionalism, just chaos and heels. Coworkers started avoiding her like she was contagious. Entire teams refused to collaborate. Some employees even threatened to quit rather than be stuck on a project with her. Management had no choice but to step in. That, finally, was why she was demoted. Not office politics. Not bad luck. Just Penelope, making herself universally unhireable in a single bound. I shook my head. I can't believe this, I said. My friend shrugged, looking guilty. Look, I didn't tell you sooner because, well, she's been spreading lies about you at work. Said you have erectile dysfunction. And that because of that, you agreed to an open marriage ages ago. I froze. Wait, what? He nodded, grim. Yeah, I assumed you already knew about her affairs, and that it was all consensual between you two. That's why I didn't interfere. I wanted to throw something. Maybe him. You assumed? You assumed my wife is a serial cheater, and you assumed I'm fine with it. He sighed. Look, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. If you want proof, talk to the ex-wife of the manager that Penelope had slept with. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare written by a particularly sadistic playwright, but I knew I had to get to the truth. My friend handed me the ex-wife's Facebook profile like a clue in some twisted murder mystery. I sent a message, fingers shaking like I'd just been handed a live grenade, and nothing. No reply. Just the cold, silent void of the internet mocking me. I sat there, staring at the screen, hands jittering as I typed out this confession, feeling like my entire life was one elaborate prank, and I'd missed the memo. My whole marriage? A joke. And apparently, the punchline was on me. After all the pieces fell into place, it was crystal clear. Staying with someone who had betrayed me this deeply wasn't just foolish, it was masochistic. My friend had been right. Every single thing he'd hinted at, every little warning, had been true. Penelope had been unfaithful, not just once or twice, but multiple times throughout our marriage, all while keeping up the facade that I had agreed to an open relationship. She'd painted this masterpiece of deception at her office, making it look like I was fully aware, fully consenting, and apparently, thoroughly enjoying her extracurricular escapades. I had been living in a parallel universe, one where my wife's version of reality didn't involve me at all. Determined to be absolutely sure, I went full detective mode. I spoke to former coworkers, acquaintances, and even the ex-wife of the manager Penelope had an affair with. Every single person confirmed the same devastating truth. My wife had not only cheated repeatedly, but she had gone out of her way to humiliate me by spreading these disgusting lies. When I finally confronted her with all the overwhelming evidence, I expected some kind of meltdown. Maybe tears, a trembling confession, an Oscar-worthy performance of guilt. Instead, she went full denial mode. Every ounce of her energy was devoted to gaslighting me like it was an Olympic sport. Cooper, you don't understand, she said, waving her hands like she was casting a spell. Everyone's just jealous of me. They're all spreading lies because they can't handle my success. It's a conspiracy. I blinked. A conspiracy? I asked, trying not to laugh or cry. You mean the same people who confirmed your affairs, your lies, and well, everything, are all secretly plotting against you? And I'm just the lucky spectator? She shrugged, trying to make it seem casual, like I was overreacting. Exactly. I'm the victim here. Everyone's against me. I stared at her, incredulous. Right? And I suppose the universe personally called a meeting to ensure my humiliation was perfect. She tilted her head, eyes wide, as if I had just insulted her entire planet. You just don't get it, she said, voice almost pleading. You're letting everyone control your perception of me. I laughed, bitter, sharp, incredulous. Oh, I get it now. I just spent months being the fool in your little office drama, thinking I was married to someone decent. But no, turns out, I was just a character in Penelope, the untouchable queen of chaos. And in that moment, I realized something critical. The rose-colored glasses weren't just off, they were shattered. I could see her clearly now. Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulative move she had ever made was laid bare. I don't believe a single word you're saying, I told her firmly, letting the words land like a sledgehammer. I see right through your little act, and I refuse to let you manipulate me any longer. I told Penelope to leave my house immediately. I didn't mince words. Pack your things and get out. Now, no arguments, no excuses. She looked at me like I'd just suggested she fly to the moon on a broomstick. What? You can't just kick me out, she said, voice dripping with indignation. Oh, I can, I snapped. And I will. Now start packing. Cooper, please, let's talk this through. Talk. I laughed, bitter and sharp. After everything you've done? After every lie, every betrayal? Talk is over. You have 1 hour, tops. She huffed, grabbed a couple of shirts, and stomped toward the door. I followed, gathering the rest of her things like I was feeding an overgrown raccoon. I dumped her shoes, bags, and designer chaos right onto the driveway, one by one. Cooper, that's cruel, she screamed, but I wasn't done. Call it cruel, call it necessary, I said. And while you're at it, remember, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Finally, she stormed off, dragging her remaining belongings like a deflated parade float. I closed the door, breathed a long, victorious sigh, and felt a weight lift off my chest. Next, I called Ron Jeremy, my divorce lawyer, the guy who looked like he could eat the competition for breakfast, negotiate settlements at lunch, and DJ underground techno on the weekend just to remind everyone he could do everything. "Cooper," Ron said in that gravelly, hell-forged tone, "you've got the fire, and I've got the napalm. Let's incinerate." You're sure this will work?" I asked, trying not to imagine him spinning records in a smoke-filled club while simultaneously drafting subpoenas. "Kid," he said, lighting a cigar like it was his weapon of choice, "this isn't legal advice. This is divine retribution. You want the truth? We're going nuclear." We filed for divorce, and, just as importantly, launched the lawsuit against Penelope's company. I expected bureaucracy, slow-motion investigations, and at least a few weeks of waiting. But no. Ron, my divorce god from hell with a side hustle as a DJ, turned the process into a 5-day whirlwind of pure chaos. By day 1, the company was already sweating like a cat trapped in a sauna. Ron's reputation apparently precedes him. He didn't need to threaten, just a single phone call, and suddenly, everyone was scrambling. Emails were forwarded, files were pulled, and some poor IT guy was running around frantically trying to compile logs. By day 2, the company had dug up everything. Texts, emails, pictures, and detailed records of Penelope's office affairs. They even documented how they discovered her escapades. Apparently, her coworkers had tipped off management after noticing unusual hotel bookings, strange expense reports, and her habit of disappearing during lunch breaks for extended periods, always returning with a self-satisfied glow. Day 3, Ron unleashed hell. He demanded the company provide timelines, receipts, and even surveillance footage. By now, everyone in the office knew they were being watched, and the higher-ups, eager to avoid corporate disaster, were ready to spill everything. Day 4, the piece de resistance emerged, video footage of Penelope engaging in sex with multiple men in the office. Ron leaned back in his chair, spinning an imaginary turntable like a DJ dropping the bass, and muttered, "Oh, this is going to hurt, deliciously." Then he looked at me with that grin of his, the one that made you question if he slept on a bed of contracts and chaos. "Cooper," he said, voice low and conspiratorial, "do you mind if I keep copies of this for my study?" I blinked, confused. "Study," he smirked, leaning forward like he was about to drop a beat in a dark club. "You know, research purposes. Important work. Hidden camera footage, human behavior, consenting adults, or not." He winked, and the implication hung in the air like a cloud of cigarette smoke and cheap cologne. I felt my stomach twist. "Do you want to keep footage of my wife having sex?" "Oh, relax," Ron said, casually flipping through digital files. "It's for science. Purely professional. I just have a thing for observing dynamics. Call it a fetish for the fine details of human indiscretion. Totally academic." I swallowed hard, realizing 2 things. First, my life had officially turned into a full-blown nightmare. And second, Ron Jeremy, divorce god from hell and weekend DJ, might just be enjoying this more than I ever would. Day 5, the company acted with military precision, though technically, the actual terminations had already happened a few days ago. What they provided now was a complete, airtight report detailing exactly how the disciplinary actions had been carried out. Every party involved, including the men Penelope had slept with, had been fired promptly, and the report included step-by-step documentation of the internal investigations that led to their dismissal. Expense reports for hotel stays used for Penelope's personal pleasure were meticulously itemized and presented as evidence, with HR including exact dates, amounts, and explanations of how each incident had been uncovered. The company even included a timeline showing how quickly they had acted from discovery to termination, leaving no room for ambiguity or excuses. It was like reading a corporate hit list, methodical, brutal, and utterly unforgiving. Exactly the kind of precision that made Ron grin like a kid at a candy store. 5 days. 5 days and the truth was on a silver platter. Ron grinned at me like a demon in a suit, and I felt a mixture of vindication, awe, and a little terror at the sheer intensity of the man who had just turned my life, and my wife's messy double life, into a legal inferno. I stared at Ron, half in awe, half in disbelief. This is insane." "Insane?" he said, twirling an imaginary turntable with one hand and adjusting his power tie with the other. "No, my friend. This is justice served with a side of chaos. Sit back and watch the fireworks." And the evidence kept coming. Proof after proof of Penelope's escapades, meticulously documented, each one a dagger to the fantasy I had thought was my marriage. Company money, hotel bookings, office rendezvous, all of it laid bare for the world to see. Her personal pleasure had apparently become a company-sponsored enterprise. The court session was surreal. Penelope walked in like she owned the place, heels clicking, hair perfect, confidence radiating. By the time the evidence was laid out, the videos, the expense reports, everything, her bravado started to crack. I could practically hear the air leaving the room. The judge, a stern man with the kind of glare that makes grown men reevaluate their life choices, leaned forward and gave Penelope a look that could curdle milk. After the break, Ron leaned over, his voice low and almost reverent. "Cooper," he said, spinning an invisible record on the edge of the bench like a weekend DJ dropping a beat. "This judge? Hardcore anti-infidelity. Been there, done that. Wife cheated, divorce, the whole nightmare. He does not see kindly on liars and cheaters." I nodded, trying to keep my excitement in check. There was a certain dark satisfaction in watching Karma suit up in a robe and gavel. When the videos played in court, Penelope's lawyer tried to argue that they were irrelevant, inconclusive. The judge didn't even flinch. He leaned forward, steepled his fingers, and with a voice sharp enough to cut glass, tore into her lawyer. "These are security footages," he barked, eyes fixed on the hapless attorney. "And the office is no place for sex. And on top of that, multiple men involved? What is this, a circus? A carnival ride?" He paused, letting the words hang in the air like a guillotine. "A carnival ride for adults, I suppose," he added, voice low, dark, and dripping with disgust. "Twisting, turning, grinding, all on company time. Shameful." I sat back in my seat, heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief and grim satisfaction. The room went silent, Penelope's lawyer shrinking under the verbal onslaught, and I could see her trying, and failing, to hold her composure. Ron, next to me, just grinned like a demon spinning his DJ decks. "You feel that?" he whispered, tapping my arm. "That's the sound of your wife getting legally eviscerated. Beautiful, isn't it?" I nodded, letting a dark smirk creep onto my face. By the end, the verdict was delivered. 80 to 20 assets split in my favor. Since Penelope had no job and no income, alimony was denied to either party. The judge looked at her like she'd just asked him to explain quantum physics with finger puppets. Penelope's jaw dropped. How am I supposed to live without alimony? Without a job? She sputtered, flailing like a reality show contestant who just lost the finale. Someone in the audience, apparently feeling generous or just brutally honest, called out, "You have natural talent. Go to West Side Street. You'll make a lot of money." The courtroom erupted in whispers and suppressed laughter. Penelope's face went from shock to fury to, well, a mix of all three. I just sat back, letting the chaos settle around her, and silently thanked Ron Jeremy, the hellish divorce god, for orchestrating the perfect symphony of destruction. A few days after the court verdict, my phone rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I almost didn't answer it, but the caller ID flashed Penelope's parents. "Cooper," her dad said, voice hesitant. We wanted to apologize. For everything. For how Penelope treated you. For dragging you through all of it. We were wrong to ever doubt you, and we're sorry." Her mom chimed in, voice shaky. "Yes, we should have known you loved her. We see that now. We want to make amends." I blinked, caught off guard. "Amends?" I asked cautiously. "You mean you're not calling to start another round of blaming me?" No, they said in unison, almost too eager. "We just want to make peace." I let out a slow, incredulous laugh. "Well, I suppose that's something. Thank you." After a brief pause, her dad added, "By the way, Penelope's left for Florida. Said she needed a fresh start." I didn't miss a beat. "Florida, huh? Good. Sunshine and sand suits people like her. Or, well, people who think they can outrun karma." A few weeks later, Ron called, voice dripping with that twisted mix of amusement and malevolent glee he always had. "Cooper," he said, chuckling over the phone. "You're not going to believe this. Your ex-wife, she's joined the adult film industry." I coughed, half laughing, half gagging. "She what? Are you serious?" "Oh, I'm serious," Ron said, spinning the image like a DJ dropping a beat. "Looks like she took the court's advice seriously. Remember the guy in the audience? West Side Street. She's capitalizing on her natural talent." I felt a mix of horror and disbelief, but after a beat, I actually laughed. God help me. I can't even be mad about that. I mean, really, who could compete with that level of commitment? And now, life had a strange sense of balance. I got myself 2 German shepherds, a couple of beasts with soft eyes and sharp teeth, and most importantly, 0 drama. I wake up in the mornings to fur on the bed, wet noses nudging me awake, tails wagging like tiny metronomes. No lies, no cheating, no public humiliation. Just loyalty, love, and the occasional slobbery kiss. I can honestly say I've never been happier. For the first time in years, I feel free. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.